Hello again, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of Journey Through Sports and Entertainment. Delighted to welcome you on board. My name is Scott. This is Marjorie, and that's Marnie down there. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Great to be here.
Brand new here.
Here
we are.
Guest.
Yep.
Yeah.
We do have a great guest, and I tell you what, do you want to bring us up to date?
Well, I would love to. We have Christine Brennan joining us today. Now, Christine and I, do you remember back in the mid-'80s, we met at that time.
Second grade.
We were in second grade, that's right. Although prodigies, because she had already graduated from Northwestern. So, but she was covering, we were both covering NFL, NFC East teams for the NFL at that time. I was with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram covering Dallas, and she was covering Washington for the Washington Post. And we got to know each other. We were together. She was president. I was vice president of the Association for Women in Sports Media. And so I think we talked on the phone every day for about a year. If we skipped a day, I think that would have been unusual.
And you still talk to her to this day, Christine? Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. Marjorie was a lifesaver as we were starting an organization that now has grown into an amazing resource and mentoring and scholarships and internships for women in sports media.
It really has. And we were founding members, and it was great to be a part of that. So Christine has also won a number of awards. She does everything. She's on TV shows. You'll probably see her on TV later tonight, tomorrow, the day after that.
Yeah, Saturday Night Live,
That's right. I mean, she's everywhere. And she's written a number of books, not only won awards, she's written a number of books that have been very successful. And she's also working on one now about Caitlin Clark, if you're still working on that, right? You've got that going?
But, oh, yes. In fact, it's crunch time for sure. But it's a delight to be writing about this incredible story and this incredible young woman.
Well, I'd like to get back to that. But first, I want to start off with, you did write a book about how your love of sports developed and how your relationship with your father and everything. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got into sports and how you got started in this industry and where that love stems from?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's probably a little bit like yours, Marjorie, and actually Scott and Marnie, all of us. You know, it's usually starts with a parent, right? Yeah. And in this case, it was my father, and he was encouraged me to play sports, and he taught me how to throw the baseball properly. The old term "throw like a girl," which we can now, of course, totally retire because that's a compliment because we're teaching our daughters and nieces and daughters to throw the ball properly and have been for a generation. But back in the day, you know, it wasn't that way. And most parents were in the 60s and 70s were telling their daughters, no, you cannot play sports. What on earth were we thinking as a nation, right?
No kidding.
But we were saying that to girls. Well, I was being told yes. And how lucky I was growing up in Toledo, suburbs of Toledo, Ohio. We had season tickets for University of Toledo football. We had season tickets for Michigan football when this was Michigan, Ohio State, Woody and Bo. Huge Michigan fans, just 45 minutes away in Ann Arbor. Toledo's right on the line with Michigan, and Tigers games and White Sox games. We went to visit our grandparents and cousins, and on it went. And then I'm almost 6 feet tall, so I was able to, I was playing sports. There were no organized sports for girls, and really not even boys till like second or third grade. So I'd be playing with all the boys. We'd play baseball, football, whatever, in the yard or in a field, and it was just idyllic. And but that was it. It was my dad and my mom who were. It wasn't older brothers. I'm the oldest of four, and it truly was an opportunity. My mom and dad were way ahead of their time. When you talk about girl dads now, my dad was a girl dad. A generation before that term even happened.
Oh, yeah.
And how lucky I was not only to get that green light to do all this. I played 6 sports in high school, not because I was so great, but because no one cared about girls specializing back then. Could have walked on at Northwestern with basketball and field hockey, but I decided I played intramurals and I was all into the Daily Northwestern.
I can't believe how much our stories are so
Northwestern,
similar.
Total academic school in that way. And but every part of my life was shaped by those moments with my parents saying, yes, honey, go ahead, play sports and love sports and watch sports, and we'll do it with you, and we'll go to games with you and your siblings. And oh, how lucky was I?
You're so right when you say that there weren't those opportunities and we just wanted to do what we could do. But, you're almost 6 feet. I'm almost 5'2".
Yeah, if she's got heels on.
Yeah. And I got the opportunity to walk on at Arizona State. And it's because really they just needed bodies in order, at least in my case, in order to start these programs. And so I look back on it and I think, oh, I could have told people I played for Arizona State. They would not have believed it since they could barely see me over a table.
Her nose is growing again.
Yeah, but no. So why didn't you walk on? Now, you said that you went on to work with the school newspaper and you focused in that area, but were you tempted to, or was it just so not a big deal in those days that it wasn't certainly anything close to what it is today?
Right. No, it's a great question. And, back in the, I graduated from high school in 1976 and Northwestern 80, and then I got my master's in 81 from Medill as well. And, I went to Northwestern because of journalism. I had done the research and I believe it, and I'm obviously very biased. I'm on the board of trustees now at Northwestern, but, that it was the best journalism school in the country. Obviously, again, there's a lot of great ones out there for sure. But, So there was that piece of it that I knew I wasn't going to be a pro athlete. I played a lot of tennis and I was good at it. First doubles on the high school team and played basketball and I played golf. My dad made sure his daughters as well as his son felt comfortable on a golf course.
Yeah,
and my
definitely.
dad would not set foot on a golf course like Inverness, and great, Inverness hosting U.S. Opens a mile from us with his buddies because it wouldn't allow women members.
Oh.
So, talk about when I started to get into the Augusta National, and ask them questions about why there were no women members, and people were like, "Oh, you're some feminazi." I said, "Oh, no, it's the biggest Republican I know." My dad, Jim Brennan, H.W. Bush's chair in Ohio in 1988, vice chair in Ohio in 88. I stress a very different Republican Party than now, very, very different. Obviously, my mom and dad have passed away, but very open-minded and obviously very, very welcoming.
Yeah.
But the, my dad, anyway, it was all about that. So I was good enough. I went to the first meeting, to answer your question specifically, Marjorie. I went to the first meeting of the women's basketball team at Northwestern, and we were good. We were winning the Big Ten back then because Ohio State and Michigan and others were not giving women any chances at all, or very small chances, because Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler did not believe women deserved a chance to play sports at an equal level. Bo Schembechler literally said the words, he did not want women athletes at Michigan to get the same size letter M as his football players. He wrote that in a letter to Don Canham, the athletic director. That was the mindset. Northwestern, much more liberal, much more open-minded. So we were already really good because, first of all, our football team was terrible. Our men's basketball team wasn't great. Our women's sports were great. So when I went to that first meeting, which I did in the locker room, a couple of weeks on campus, I looked around. I thought I could probably make it. There were 4 women who were my age, so freshmen, who were on partial rides, as well as the sophomores, juniors, seniors. So, that I looked around. I said, this would be very competitive. I obviously knew what I was looking at even back then as an 18-year-old. But I thought, even if I make it, I'm going to be sitting on the bench in Iowa City or Minneapolis or Columbus, Ohio on Saturday nights. And is that what I wanted? And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful reserves playing basketball all over. That's not meant as a slap or slight at all. Yeah. But in my world, I thought, no, I don't need to be in a big arena. There wouldn't have many people in it back in the day, or traveling for this. No, I want to be on campus. I did join a sorority, Chi Omega. Sororities in Northwestern are very, very different, very northern than southern sororities, of course. I had, and then the Daily Northwestern, and I knew that would be my wonderful extracurricular activity. I became the managing editor my senior year, and that launched me into 4 internships during my college days. And then my job at the Miami Herald, and then obviously the Washington Post and onward. And so, and then field hockey junior year, I was good, pretty good field hockey player. My friends wanted me to join, and I could have made that team, and we were really good at that at Northwestern as well, and win national titles in that. So I think in this case, and we just did, again, Northwestern did this year in field hockey, the NCAA, Division I champs. Right. So, but I thought, nah. Again, I was a realist, and I could play. I played intramurals like crazy and ran the intramurals at Chi Omega, and we won.
Oh my gosh! What'd you win?
We won floor hockey. flag football, we were excellent. I was the
Yes.
quarterback.
Uh-huh.
We did it all. I had 3 basketball leagues, 1 co-ed, 2 regular
Oh my
two
gosh,
women's
I
leagues.
love that because we did that I
Yeah,
was
so
Kappa Alpha Theta at Arizona State, and I ran the football league before I was president the year after, and I mean the intramurals, and we won the flag football championship, and it's still today a big tradition at Arizona State's Kappa Alpha Theta. To win the football league, but I grew up in a Northwestern home. My father is a graduate of Northwestern, and so I was always familiar with the journalism school. Although I didn't want to be in the cold, so I went to Arizona State instead, and the Walter Cronkite. But here, let the others jump in here.
Well, we're out of time now.
Yeah,
So
I know.
just,
I'm asking too many questions. Okay, I do that
Marjorie
every
always
week.
jumps on and keeps it going. But,
I know.
But she's always got wonderful things to say. Everything you shared with us is really grade school, high school, college, and that's about it. You haven't talked about your career after college, and I'm going, that's incredible. It's a lifetime of information you've just shared with us, and you were all of 23, 24 years old. So my question to you is, all those things that you had a chance to be a part of, and in some ways still do, but I mean back then, when you were only that age and had no idea what your real adult life had waiting for you, what did you cherish most about doing all that stuff? Why did you do that? You talked about your dad and being, how special he was and what have you. And my dad was much the same to my 2 younger sisters. So I totally can identify with what you're sharing. But I just wondered what it was that you really cherished most about doing all those things. Did you just like staying busy and, hey, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this? What was it really?
Certainly, Scott, that's part of it. Yeah, and I love competition. I love new challenges. I love new things, even to this day. I mean, I'm still a journalist, but I am doing so many things so different than I was, before, and have taken sports journalism and sports and culture and journalism, those big issues involving that intersection, that superhighway intersection, with sports and our culture in this country, and have turned that into a career with commenting on those things with TV and columns, et cetera. So I just love variety. I love new things. I love new people. I love, everything. And I'm so lucky that at this stage, everyone can do the math. If I'm class of 76 from high school and 80 from college,
So you're
I'm
already
still
39 then.
I love it more today than the day I started. I'm so fortunate to have these opportunities. You work super hard. That has been what I've done. I'm not necessarily the greatest writer in the world. I'm not necessarily the greatest reporter in the world. In fact, I'm not the greatest writer or reporter in the world, but I was willing to work harder than everybody else. And I tell students that all the time, and young people. That's the secret to success. It's that there's literally no secret to success. Just work hard. Now, it's a different environment for these young people coming out of college now in terms of jobs. Back in 80, we had all my friends, someone was going to the Dallas Morning News. My boyfriend at the time actually was going to the Dallas Morning News, friends going to Rochester, Syracuse, Miami. That's where I ended up going, Miami Herald, all over the country, Sacramento, on and on it went. But I think that, it was just the love of doing new and different things. And I continued, I love it today, as I said, more than the day I started, because I've kept that interesting and exciting. But I love competition. I love breaking news.
Oh, yeah.
This Caitlin Clark book came about completely out of the blue, no book proposal, no nothing, just a conversation and then an offer the next day, right before I went to the Paris Olympics. And, from Scribner, and that I never envisioned. But now then, okay, I stopped my life and now I'm doing this book. And it's just pure fun. I'm really lucky to be able to do all this.
One thing that came out is your all-time favorite that you cherish the most? One thing?
All
the things that you did back as a kid.
Other than family, of course, and dear friends. But yeah, I've covered every Olympics since LA in '84. So that's 21 in a row, winter and summer. Wow. For the Miami Herald, for the Washington Post, for USA Today, ABC News, CNN. That's just a dream. I would have hoped to go to one, Scott, as a fan, one Olympics, pay my own way. If you had said to me in college, I would have said, oh gosh, someday maybe when the Olympics come to the United States, I'll go. That would have been my thought, and I'll pay, and with family, friends, whatever. 21 in a row. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
And you get to go. I remember being at, L.A. in 1984. So you got a chance to do that in a couple of years too. You're going to be there, I'm sure, huh?
Yeah, bookends. Although I'm not stopping. I mean, as long as I'm breathing, I will keep going. 2030, there's 2034 Winter Olympics or Salt Lake City. So yeah, in fact, already gearing up. Believe it or not, folks, it's unbelievable to think of this, but in a year and a month, less than a year and a month, basically in a year, we will have another Winter Olympics, and they're a beauty in Milan and Cortina in Italy, the Italian Alps.
Oh,
so
that's just going to be
I'll be there for USA Today and CNN and ABC as well.
Yeah, it's crazy that you talk about that, and then I get Marnie in here. You talk about the Olympics. If I had to pick one of the, I've been to 43 Super Bowls. I've just cherished all kinds of things like that. But my favorite thing was the Olympics every year. I just, whenever the Olympics were held, and I just remember they used to be in the same year. Remember that the summer and the winter before they split them.
94, which is why we got Tanya Nancy.
Exactly right.
You had the opportunity to have those skaters come right back. They had this luck of being born in 69, 70, and 71.
Right.
So they were the perfect age to come and have the 92 and then 94.
Right.
And that gave us Tanya Harding being upset with Nancy Kerrigan, and obviously that changed my life. So
that's right.
I just did an event about 10 days ago with Nadia Comaneci and Bart Connor. And of course, you met in 84. Bart won 3 gold medals. But what I was going to say is my favorite Olympics, and I guess this is just before you came, was 1980. I was just a punk kid out of school, and I was at Miracle on Ice when Mike Eruzione got the game-winning goal, and the Americans beat the Russians 4-3 to win the gold medal up in Lake Placid. Oh my gosh! And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So it really. So I can just what you've had a chance to do is above and beyond. To be 21? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I'm envious because I was in college and I was listening to a transistor radio, and I had the antenna pointed toward Minneapolis. This was in the sorority house, at Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. And I lost the signal after the second quarter, and the U.S. was behind 3-2.
Right.
And so I literally then went to the TV in the sunroom, and there was a friend, a wonderful, sorority sister.
Right.
I happened to be knitting, and I'm in sweats. And believe me, not everyone, we were all watching the World Series. We were that kind of sorority at Northwestern. But she was knitting, and I'm watching the 4:00 Chicago news to get the score. Remember those old days where they would say, you don't want to know the score?
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted to know the score more than life itself. I was so ready for Twitter. I was so ready to time travel and give me Twitter and or social media or just the internet. But it's 1980, of course. So then it was Tim Weigel, the late great Tim Weigel.
Right.
Says, all right, if you've stepped away, if not, turn down the sound. And then he goes, well, quite an upset. The U.S. 4, the Soviets 3.
Right.
And I leaped for joy. And then I looked at my friend Jennifer Fisk, who was knitting, and I said, what did he say? And she said, without missing a stitch, USA 4, Soviets 3. And then I just went leaping for joy through the sorority house. And of course, that was tape delayed. So how anyone could wait for that, I have no idea. Greatest upset in sports history to this minute. I know a lot of those guys. I know Eruzione pretty well.
Right.
And oh my gosh, what a moment.
Well, that was unreal. I
could just visualize your story there. That's awesome.
Well, Marnie, jump on board.
Well, I'm just curious. So you've obviously mentored many men and women over the past decades. Have the questions changed about what they would like to know or how people can get involved or what are really the objectives of somebody who wants to be in sports reporting these days?
Marnie, that is a really, really good question because it has changed. And it's understandable why it's changed because of our world changing, social media, obviously, the dearth of printed newspapers or the decline and fall and demise of so many. And then, of course, the rise of this, which, I live and die with this and I read newspapers on it. And, that's my world, too. But there's also then, I think, the need, we know what this brings, and it is the idea of your take, right? You got to have a different take, hot takes, something that is going to get everyone's attention. Well, that's not journalism. Obviously, as a columnist giving my opinion, someone can say, well, that was quite a a take. Well, fine. I'm not thinking of it as a take. I'm thinking of it as a column. And again, this is old school for sure. But so what I'll hear from a lot of young people, and maybe some of you do as well, I'm sure you do, is like they want to be stars. And who doesn't want to be a star, right? Who doesn't? Of course we all do. But they watch it on TV, or they look on YouTube, or they watch it on Instagram, or wherever they're watching stuff, and we all do. I mean, again, this is very normal behavior. And I think a lot of young people just kind of want to just give their take and be a star. I support it, go for it. But to do the groundwork, and again, this does sound very, old school, but to do the reporting, to go to a small place, to go out of your comfort zone, to leave your hometown, to leave your school, town, wherever you are, and go somewhere and start and make mistakes at a small place, or just learn how to report, learn how to write, learn how to deal with people. Again, whatever it is, learn how to, be a one-person band on video, right? So you're shooting it, and then you're on air, you're quote unquote the talent. You're also behind the camera, all of that, whatever it might be, to learn, as opposed to just like shoot yourself out of a cannon. And where does that lead you in a few years when the next young person is shooting themselves out of a cannon, and now they're going to replace you versus those skills? So, the hard work, putting in that time and effort, and being willing to move. And, I went to the Miami Herald. Now, I was the first woman sports writer at the Miami Herald. If I'd been a white male, I would not have gotten that job. I'd interned the previous summer, so it wasn't a token situation in the sense that they knew me and my work, and they liked my work, obviously. But they needed to hire a woman because it was 1981, and they never had a full-time female sports writer. But Miami for me was a departure from Toledo and Northwestern. And, and also tons of Northwestern friends were down there, and we had a great time, and, it was spectacular. Northwestern sent a lot of people to the Herald. So it's a very big newspaper, top 10 newspaper at the time. So it wasn't small like what we're thinking a small town would be now. But it's certainly, a lot of people would have said, I just want to be at the Chicago Tribune, or I want to do whatever. Well, no, for me, I'm so glad I went to the Miami Herald and did something different and started my career there. It turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened for me, and then launched me back here to Washington, D.C. So I really encourage young people to be as old school as possible in a world that does not reward that or encourage that anymore. And I think that is troublesome.
I totally agree with you on that. I also wanted to ask you about your new project. So it's been interesting because you've been following Caitlin Clark as a columnist with USA Today, and then later announced that you were going to be writing a book about her. I've kind of followed the whole trajectory of what's been happening since that point when you said you were going to write the book, and then the playoffs came, and people got a little sensitive about things like with the attention she was getting and all. So could you tell us a little bit about that journey? Because it sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks. And yes, it is definitely fascinating. And it's, we could talk the full podcast on it. I certainly won't. But I wasn't planning to do a book. I was following her and writing a few columns about her. I'd never met her. I covered many women's Final Fours and many men's Final Fours, but I didn't cover those last few ones with Iowa. Why? Because I was gearing up for the Masters, and we just have different people doing different things at USA Today. So I came at it from just watching this incredible phenomenon and seeing something that I think, Marjorie, you would agree, for sure, Marnie, maybe all three of you, Scott, we've never quite seen in women's sports, and that is this crossover appeal of a woman athlete who now you have men wearing number 22 jerseys, guys who wouldn't have been caught dead wearing a woman's jersey 10, 15 years ago, right? Mia Hamm a little bit during the Women's World Cup in '99. That's the closest comparison I see. Mia Hamm jersey, or Brandi Chastain, or Julie Foudy, or Brianna Scurry. But in general, this isn't, and the WNBA never got the attention it deserved. And the women's Olympic team, oh my goodness. I've covered so many of our women's basketball, the U.S. women's basketball games, gold medal matches in Sydney and in Athens and in Beijing. Rio, I'm missing a few for sure, and never many reporters, tumbleweeds in the press room. and in the press section, because most of the male sports writers just laugh it off, like, I'm not covering that. Right? That's the reality. So now you've got Caitlin Clark. She's the attention magnet, and she's bringing all these eyeballs, and every man wants to cover this because you're watching the threes, from the parking lot and from the next county, and the passing and everything else. It's just extraordinary. And so for me, that was the story, the idea that finally all of these women, and it's a majority Black league, and there are quite a few gay women in the league, of course, and the Olympic team, majority Black team, would finally get its due, because you've got the attention magnet, who happens to be a white woman from Iowa, but by bringing everyone else gets to see, what these great players are about. As you're watching Caitlin Clark, and she might be on the bench at the Olympics, for a lot of the Olympics, she, of course, would have. You're seeing Asia Wilson, and you're seeing Chelsea Gray, and you're seeing all these other incredible, Brittany Griner, who, of course, was certainly famous, but not because of basketball, but because she was, jailed by Putin's Russia. And so that's what this is to me. Anyway, so I treat it like anything else. I am asking the questions I would ask anyone.
Right.
And yes, Dejanay Carrington and the Connecticut Sun did not like my questions about, it was a question and a follow-up. This was when Caitlin Clark was hit in the eye by Dejanay Carrington just 90 seconds into game one, late September of their playoff series, Indiana against Connecticut. I was covering that. I actually was covering it for USA Today, writing columns, even as I'm also working on a book. That's not unusual. Lots of people do that.
Right.
Tiger Woods, NFL, you bet. That's what we do. And everyone knew there was no secret. I'm doing both. I'm columns and a book. And anyway, I asked the question of, did she intend to poke Caitlin in the eye? And if not, yes or no, why not? And then also followed up about laughing that was caught on the internet. This was exploding online, you guys.
Oh, it was.
There were millions and millions of views. The only way that to get to the bottom of it and to allow the athlete to then take it and run with it and dismiss whatever, false narrative or whatever narrative is out there. The only way to do that is by asking a specific question and a specific follow-up to let the athlete know exactly what you're asking about, so that she can hit it out of the park. And she can dismiss it and handle it. I've done it 100 times. I do it 100 more times. And that, of course, was something that was so unusual, foreign, whatever, to the WNBA, to the team, that it obviously created a huge firestorm, which sadly to me showed how unprepared some of these players were for the national attention and national scrutiny they were receiving.
Absolutely.
And that will all, of course, be in the book.
Oh, okay. Have you met Caitlin yet, or how's that? You have? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. I was when I got back from Paris. It was everyone does the Paris to Indy thing, right? Paris, Indianapolis in the same week. I love Indy, and it's a great town, great sports town. Of course, Big Ten, and my siblings all went to Indiana University, so I know it very, very well. But I came back from the Olympics on the Monday, the 12th, I think it was, of August, and then on Thursday, the 15th, it was. I flew to Indy. I signed my book contract on the 15th, and then flew to Indy. And then was on the road and in Indianapolis or wherever the Fever were playing all the way through to those two playoff games in Connecticut in September. And I asked Caitlin probably 50 questions. She answered every one. Beautiful answers, long answers, goes off on tangents, looks you in the eye, shakes your hand. A spectacular human being. And just and I asked tough ones of her too. The Taylor Swift, after the only debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, I'm sure everyone remembers Taylor Swift went on Instagram and endorsed Kamala Harris and talked about voting and went on with quite an Instagram post. Caitlin Clark liked it. I did not see that she liked it, but I saw the tweets about Caitlin Clark and Kylie Kelsey and Jennifer Aniston and a few others liking the Taylor Swift tweet. So the next day, you have to ask her. You have to.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I was the one who asked. I don't know if anyone else wanted to or not. It's a pretty young press corps, as you can imagine, covering the WNBA, because most newspapers have never cared about covering the WNBA, which is the truth, which is why it's a young, definitely young, press corps. And many of them I've gotten to know, and I'm trying to mentor some of them as well and help them along the way. Anyway, I asked the question of Caitlin Clark, there was, because then of course a flurry of attention on Caitlin liking the Taylor Swift post, because that's social media in our world today. And so I asked her, what did the Taylor Swift post mean to her? And was she planning to endorse Kamala Harris? And she answered the first part about everyone should vote, and my platform, I want people to vote, and she didn't even address the second part. So I think a lot of Caitlin Clark fans were not happy with my question. So there you go, right? I'm asking questions that maybe not everyone's, Caitlin never said a word, because Caitlin wouldn't say a word, because she'll accept every question and answer it, and not go online and get upset about anything, ever. As I think people can see, you don't have to take my word for it. And so, but if anyone wants to say, well, wait a minute, you're being unfair to Dejanay Carrington, which of course is the complete opposite. I'm giving Dejanay Carrington the opportunity to address the issue specifically and hit it out of the park, as I said a few minutes ago. Well, Caitlin, I gave her the opportunity to address the issue too. So if everyone's mad at me, that probably means I'm not saying Caitlin was, I have no idea, but a lot of her fans were on the internet. Not that I spent much time worrying about that, like 0 time, but I did see some of it, like, how dare you ask her before a big game? It's, I'll ask that 100 times out of 100, as I said a few minutes ago. And you know what? That means I'm doing my job. I'm not seeking for people to get mad at me, but I'm not their PR person. They have PR people. That's not me, as you know, Marjorie, of course, as we all know, Scott. I'm a journalist there to ask questions. Sometimes they're tough questions. Sometimes they're easy questions that I don't even think about it. I just ask it. If there's news, we must ask these questions, especially the high profile nature of Caitlin Clark's life. You can argue that she is one of, if not the most popular athletes in the country. Right. And certainly the most popular female athlete probably on earth. So therefore, those questions are coming, and she, of all people, understands tough questions and welcomes tough questions.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Let me ask you this. We've got about 8-10 minutes left in the program, and I'm just kind of curious, with all that you've shared with us, all the things that you've gotten a chance to be a part of and to cover, and just what you've done literally for decades in the world of sports, someday when you're finally retired and years from now, long gone, and people look back and they go, "Oh my gosh, I remember her," or "Gee, my gosh, she was a female in sports, really." I just wondered what you cherish most, what you're proudest of all the things that you've gotten a chance to be a part of. Are there 1 or 2 things that you say, "I'll never forget," or "I'll always cherish this"? And then part 2 to the question, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered best?
Well, you're very kind. And yes, I'm never going to retire, by the way. This is retirement, right? I get to do what I love every second of my day. Now, there are moments writing a book when you're not loving it every second of the day. It's it's overwhelming at times. But, and this is my 8th book, and it's still overwhelming. Books are, I'm a daily journalist. Marjorie, we all remember those days where you literally, you write it or you say it or you go on TV, you do it and you're done.
Yes,
a book is never done, right?
No.
But having said that, I get to do what I love. And so, I do play golf, but I don't want to play golf every day. So a couple times a year is fine right now. And I'm so fortunate, as I said, to get to do what I love and have people want me to do it. And it's just amazing, at this stage and this age that I am. So I feel very, very lucky. But I think, again, the Olympics, the opportunity to be in that opening ceremony stadium and see the world come together, to cover amazing athletes like Jackie Joyner-Kersee, like Katie Ledecky, like Simone Biles. I don't know her as well as Katie Ledecky. Katie Ledecky is one of the great people of all time. What a representative of our country. And, the most decorated female Olympian in the United States ever. And in fact, most decorated Olympian, U.S. Olympian, other than in swimming, other than Michael Phelps. And as a woman, only a Soviet gymnast is ahead of her in medals. So, and more to come. She's going to LA for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's in Brisbane, Australia in 2032.
Probably.
So you heard it here first there. Although no one said anything about that. It's just me, having fun with it. But I think, just those Olympic opportunities to travel the world covering sports. I watched ABC growing up, Jim McKay. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, the Olympics. I don't remember 68, but certainly 72, including the horrors of the 11 Israeli athletes and coaches murdered by terrorists on September 5th, 1972. The movie, I highly recommend it. It's out now. And watching every second of that and just going, oh my gosh, never seen anything like, I felt like Jim McKay was talking to me, and now I do work for ABC News at those Olympics, not equating it at all, but talk about what would 14-year-old me have thought of the career that was to come. So those things are, keep me, make me smile, and to have achieved these dreams and to hope that I could do these things I think I've covered about 12 Super Bowls, nowhere near where you are, but, all the things that I've been lucky enough to do. I think those will rush through my brain in my last thoughts probably, as well as the wonderful people and family, of course, and friends. I mean, that goes without saying. And then your legacy, I hopefully that I was honest and truthful and didn't play favorites. And what I said a few minutes ago about asking questions and wanting to get answers that people might not want to give, but that's my job. My responsibility is to the readers of USA Today or the Washington Post, Miami Herald. My responsibility is to the viewers. It's not to those, you of course treat people right. And I've got so many athletes who, of course, we have a great relationship. So I wouldn't want anyone to think otherwise. And then I think probably going back to what Marjorie, how we met, the Association for Women in Sports Media, we got going. I was the first president. Marjorie was vice president. We had a few other vice presidents, the treasurer, secretary, just all of us just throwing ourselves into it. We had no bank account. Finally had a bank account. We had no office. We had no executive director, no assistants. It was just us, taking time out of our work. Me at the Washington Post, my editor, George Solomon, totally supportive, but he'd come over and say, is there any chance you're going to write a story this week? And I'd look at him, I'd say, probably not. He goes, okay, and walk away.
I remember those days. Oh, yes.
Yeah, because we had so much to do. And we started, my sister gave me the idea of a scholarship internship. So the Associated Press Sports Editors, which is the umbrella organization for all sports departments. It's now, unfortunately, also, certainly, I think Awesome is bigger than AWSM, Awesome we call it, is bigger than APSE in terms of our conventions for sure, and numbers of people who attend because we have so many students. And we have men, of course, who are members of Awesome. Of course, we're not exclusive in that way. But when APSE started, they started a golf tournament. And when we started, my sister's suggestion, we started a scholarship internship program that is now awarded scholarships to over 200 women. And including some of it, Rachel Nichols and Kelly Whiteside and Amy Shipley and so many others over the other big names as well that I'm obviously not coming to my mind right now. But and I fund 2 of those scholarships every year in my late parents' name.
Wonderful.
And so things like that. Hopefully, being a mentor and starting something like that, I hope people. I hope that means a lot to people, and I think it does, and that makes me feel great, and I'll continue to do that with Northwestern. I fund a couple scholarships at Northwestern or summer fellowships, and then also our family in Toledo with a scholarship, and then University of Toledo as well. So I try to do a lot of that stuff, and the old line, right? To whom much is given, much is expected. Yeah. That was my mom and dad, Jim and Betty Brennan, and yep, I'm living it. I'm trying to live it every second.
That's wonderful. I bet they were very proud of you.
Yeah. Marnie?
Well, so what do you think it is about athletes or sports that make everybody want to, or not everybody, but most people really want to pretend they're doing the last minute, buzzer shot or catching the touchdown in the end zone? What is it about that what is that? You've covered so many different sporting events and games and players. Why did we like it so much?
Yeah, I think it's the high wire act at the circus, right? It's the entertainment value of sports. Obviously the Eagles, congratulations, Eagles in the Super Bowl. But the Washington, the Commanders, with Jaden Daniels, this rookie, all of a sudden he's winning games in the last second. Well, you don't have to be a sports fan to love that. And that's the Caitlin Clark effect. I think Grandma and Grandpa in the produce section who never watched a basketball game in their life are like, we're figuring out where Ion is on our TV.
That's
so we
true.
can watch Caitlin Clark, who they never heard of a year earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Well, that's entertainment. That's the high wire act, the trapeze,
the wow factor.
And I'll say it personally, and this is in the introduction to the book. So as I said, I'll take it to Caitlin Clark again, since, obviously that's been my focus the last few months, that I am in my kitchen watching her beat Indiana in a Big Ten game. I'm just happen to be watching it. And I'm like, what did I just watch? A three-pointer at the buzzer. She's sideways, her head's not over here, her legs are this way, and it goes in, and she's running around, and they win the game. Just a February game in 2023. And then the whole family, about 9-10 of us, got tickets for the Maryland. Maryland, of course, is right here in the D.C. suburbs, University of Maryland against Iowa, about a year ago, and to see Caitlin Clark in person. I didn't see her with a press pass. We had general admission seats. And in the first 12 seconds of the game, she comes across the timeline mid-court and heaves it, from the next county, and it goes in. And at this point, I've been a sports writer, 42 years? And I laughed out loud. I was like, what is that? What have I just seen? So, here this, I'm not jaded, but I think we're all jaded in some ways, and we cover a lot of stuff, right? Like I've seen it all, right? I've seen it all in this career. I've covered it all. Carl Lewis, Michael Phelps, you name it, everyone. Tom Brady, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I'm literally, my jaw drops. So what is that? Whatever that is, I think is the answer to your question. And it's the surprising, shocking moment, the thing that just we haven't seen before, that would just go, oh my gosh, I got to see more of that.
Well, definitely. I was reading a book in another room, and my husband was flipping the channels in the den when Caitlin Clark was a junior in college, and he shouts out, "You've got to come in here. You got to watch this.
This woman's crazy."
Yes. So I go in there, he rewinds it, and I start watching, and we watched every game of hers the rest of her college career. That was it.
You and everybody else. I mean, that's the story. Heck, I might put you in the book, Marjorie. That's I'm still looking. I've got some stuff I've got to put in there. That might make the cut.
You're free to take it. Yeah, I mean, here's my husband screaming, "You've got to come in here."
Well, I think that's what she's been able to do, is that even like most men who would be like, I'm not watching, girls college basketball, are suddenly being like, wait a minute, what, so excited about it. So it's great. She really did, turn the tide for a lot of people.
No question about it. Yeah, yours too. I'm just right there.
When does your book come out?
It will be out early July. They're rushing it as quickly as possible. So the publication date is July 8th. Thank you for asking. It's called On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports, from Scribner. It is actually already on Amazon and other places. I mean,
pre-order.
Obviously, there's no reason to necessarily order it right now, but go ahead if you want. That would be lovely, and I say thanks in advance. So late June, books will be starting to arrive, and then July 8th, right before the All-Star game, which is in Indianapolis. And I'll be doing a book tour and hitting a lot of places, and certainly hope to get to Dallas.
I hope you do. Absolutely.
And I've got a speech in Fort Worth in March of next year, so March of 2026, that I just Speakers Bureau just got in touch today, of all things.
Well, then we got to get together.
Don't want to necessarily jump the gun on that, but there is, I could be down there for that. But yeah, the interest in this woman is extraordinary, and the equality of the three, right? I think that's, and I need to make a note of this to myself, actually. Dunking, we always thought it would be dunking in women's basketball that would be the thing. But it's the three, and it's equal. Like Steph Curry and Caitlin, you go, well, that looks the same. And when have we ever said that about women's sports,
That's
right?
so true.
Yep,
So,
good point.
but yeah, July 8th,
All right.
and I'll be, out and about doing a book tour, hopefully for quite some time, spending a fair amount of time, I think, in Iowa and in Indiana.
Terrific.
30 seconds to go. What's the takeaway for everybody that's watching or listening? We've just listened to you for close to an hour now. It's incredible what you shared with us. The takeaway you want every listener and viewer right now to remember about. 30 seconds. Go for it.
I think just to be fortunate and to be appreciative of what you've, say you're fortunate and be appreciative of what you have. We only have a short amount of time on this earth. My dad used to tell us kids, there was 4 of us, and of course our mom, a huge part of all of this, was, this ain't no dress rehearsal. And we would correct him and say, Dad, he's smiling as he's saying it with a wink in his eye. We'd say, well, no, you can't say ain't. This isn't a dress. No, you have to say it that way. This ain't no dress rehearsal. And of course, what does that mean? This is your one shot, go for it. So every column I write, every interview, I try to really just give it my all. There's not another try at this. This is our life, and go for it. So I feel like I've lived my life that way, and I know my mom and dad did as well. And it just is a huge part of that my DNA. This ain't no dress rehearsal.
Wow.
Well, Christine, it's been above and beyond, above anything we could have anticipated. You're a rock star. There's no question about that. Iconic as they come, and we can't thank you enough. Congratulations on your incredible career. But thanks for joining us here during the course of the last hour. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Scott, and of course, Marjorie and Marnie. Thank you so much. I've loved being with you.
Absolutely.
Stay safe and be well. Thank you much.
Thank you as well.
Marnie, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
And Marjorie?
this is great.
All right. Sounds good. And I'm Scott. So until next week, stay safe, be well, and don't forget, journey through sports and entertainment. Till next time, so long.